Hey guys, what's up? Once again, it's Saturday, the last Saturday of 2017. And here I am once again to host it for the Breakfast Club. So it is the end of another year. And of course, as it usually is when it gets to the end of the year, people tend to want to reflect on the past and on, what they went through during that year, or what they hope to get into the next year, or whatever lessons they may have learned in the past year and what they want to bring with them to next year. There's always a lot of reflecting on what happens in the past and what they can gain from that past, what lessons they can get from it, to what they can learn to move on into the future. And one thing that I've noticed about these recollections of the past is that many times we tend to get them skewed. It's very easy for us to lose sight of what may have happened in the past, partially because people are always trying to reframe the past in their own perspective, and people's perspectives can be faulty. Ask, if anybody who wants to believe that there is such thing as a perfect recollection, well, keep in mind, in case you didn't know this, that eyewitness accounts in courts tend to be considered the most unreliable forms of evidence, because people tend to remember things differently than the way they actually happened, even if it had just happened a few minutes prior. Scary, but it's true. So if people's recollection of things can change just after a few minutes, imagine a few days, a few weeks, a few months, or years. And this happens a lot. This is one of the reasons why written history tends to be so important, because it at least gives us a much more concrete view of the past, or at least we hope so. Because remember, when it comes to written things, it still depends on that person's recollections, and if that person's recollection is already screwed up by the time he puts pen to paper, well, then you got a written account that's also faulty. And unless you happen to have any other written accounts or other, corroborating evidence, yeah, you're not exactly guaranteed to have a good representation of what may have happened in the past. You may not have a clear view of prior events. And this is just simply talking about things that could be true. What about things that are just completely made up? It's interesting to me that even things that happened just a few decades ago can already be twisted. We can take an event that may have happened, say, 20, 30 years ago, and you will find several people, each with differing perspectives on what actually happened. And worse, sometimes you may not even get a clear account on what exactly happened. I don't necessarily want to get into politics just yet, so to come up with a more lighter example, let's take an event that supposedly happened in Bruce Lee's life. Yes, I'm bringing up Bruce Lee. I'm into martial arts, so sooner or later I guess his name's going to be coming up. There was a movie that recently came out, not all that great. It's called The Birth of the Dragon, which is supposed to be a sensationalized account of a duel that supposedly happened between Bruce Lee and Wong Jackman. The movie is already heavily fictionalized. I mean, they really take liberties with what actually happened. But what's funny is that if you decide to try to find out exactly what happened, well, good luck. You're going to get differing accounts. Different people have different recollections on what exactly happened. And some of these people were people who were actually there. Yeah, these people were actually there to see the challenge. Some of them actually saw the fight. And you still can't get a straight answer on what exactly happened. And this thing did happen. I mean, and it didn't happen that long ago. And we still can't get a clear definition of it. That's hilarious, but a bit troubling if you're trying to get a clear perspective on things. But again, we're talking about things that, we can verify to an extent that, this happened. We have eyewitness accounts, and we have other people corroborating this. So, it did. We know at the very least that there was a challenge issued and that a fight took place. How the fight went down, well, that's where things get fuzzy. But we at least have a concrete place to start. Unfortunately, there are other things in the past that we don't really have a concrete place to start, or worse, we may have a fictionalized account of what it is. And trying to unravel these fictionalized accounts and trying to get at the truth can be a maddeningly endless venture that one may never, see the end of. I mean, that's why I use the word endless there. To continue with the martial arts thread, I can definitely attest to the fact that if one wants to try to get to the truth of the origins of different Chinese martial arts, that's a maze that just goes on without end. It is very hard to separate fact from fiction, especially since there were people who had a lot of motivation to make sure that they stuck with a fictionalized account of how their particular arts began, how it got started. There were a lot of benefits to trying to come up with false lineages or to claim some type of illustrious ancestor that created their particular martial forms. And this is just martial arts. This is just, learning skills and, how to, defend yourself or break other people down. What about cultural histories? What about political histories? What about people with certain agendas? Things can get a lot worse then. And there are plenty of examples of that when one looks into the past. Something as seemingly innocent as square dancing can have something of a sinister edge to it when one begins to research its history. I don't even want to get into it here because I've already gone to 7 minutes. But if anybody is curious as to why I brought that up or what could possibly be sinister about the history of square dancing, well, look it up. Go on. Just look up, for instance, why it, for some strange reason, became the state dance for at least 27 states for a time period. And why Henry Ford wanted to push this as a national dance. That's one very deep rabbit hole. But if you decide to leap into it, you'll begin to realize just how messed up fictionalized accounts of the past can get. And how some people can come up with an idealistic view of the past in order to come up with their own vision of what they think the future might be. And that is at the crux of the problem, isn't it? Again, as we're at the end of 2017, we look to the past to be able to gain insight into what we can do for the future. We all happen to have a particular view of the future that we would like to be, like to live. Whether it be our own personal futures or a cultural future, a social future, what have you. And we usually gain lessons from the past in order to try to build upon this future. We look on things that happened before, trying to gain useful lessons and ways of being able to improve ourselves in order to achieve that future. But if we're going to be doing that, we have to make sure that the past that we're looking at is as clear a picture as possible. And try not to fool ourselves with fictionalized accounts or idealized versions of what may have happened. So, if there's anything that I want to end this year off with, is that when you make your recollections, as faulty as our perspectives can be, try to be as honest as possible. Because the more dishonest you get, the more frightening your future may actually get to be. Whether it be your own personal future or a future for others. That's it. Hope you guys have a fantastic new year. And I look forward to 2018 being better than 2017. Not just for myself, but for everyone out there. Take care, guys. And have a good one.